Today's guest is the author of the book, Filling the Blank Page, How to Build a Retirement of Passion and Purpose. She's here to share insights on the emotional and psychological changes required for retirement. Please welcome Dawn Marcott. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, I think it's a topic that people do and don't want to talk about. Some people say, I'm never going to retire. And some people say, I can't wait to retire.
Yep.
And the question goes around the dinner table. The kids ask mum and dad, you ask your friends, you ask your parents. It's a hot topic.
It is. And I'm a little bit different than maybe most people that talk about retirement because I don't talk about the finances. I talk about all the other stuff, the emotional and psychological and intellectual changes that come with retirement, because that's just not talked about enough. There's a whole industry that talks about the finances and how to get ready, and that's great and that's important, but it's also important to prepare socially for what's going to happen, because unfortunately, retirement is actually one of the top 10 most stressful life events. And people don't think about that when they're thinking ahead to what they're going to do.
Well, the topic often does revolve around money. And for me, I hear that and I want to tune out. Oh, come on. There's got to be something more interesting than just the money.
Right.
Let's talk about
the
people.
Exactly.
And all of us, in my opinion, want something different in retirement. And I think a lot of people who haven't set goals throughout their life, they get towards the end of their working life and say, well, what am I going to do? And it is a blank page because most people just don't set goals. But this is one where you want to make the most of it. And I think it's important because when I grew up, I heard that there was 3 phases in your life. The first one was your learning years. So you go to school, you get a degree, you figure out what you like and what you're attracted to.
Sure.
Secondly, once you get the knowledge, you go to the workforce and then you move into your earning years. And then you work and you're focused on your 9 till 5. Some people have a 9 till 9. Some people are just 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And then you get to this thing called the yearning years. And now you've got money and you've got time and you've got to figure out, what am I going to do with this next stage?
Exactly. And things have really changed in the last couple of generations. I mean, when our grandparents or great-grandparents retired, they probably weren't terribly healthy and they probably didn't live very long after they retired. That's just the way it was. But life expectancy has changed, our health has changed. So now people are retiring and living 20, 30, 40 years in that stage of retirement. So that's an entire adult lifetime. What are you going to do with that? And because, there is such a focus on the financial side, many people are more financially stable than they have ever been up to that point. Their house is paid off. Their kids are probably have hopefully left, except in my house. But you have all of this opportunity to do things. You have the time, you have the money, but there's such a thing as too much freedom. And to your point, if you haven't set goals, if you haven't thought about what do I want to do? What am I passionate about? What's going to get me out of bed in the morning? It can actually be pretty devastating emotionally and psychologically because you get in this spiral of, oh my gosh, today is exactly the same as yesterday. Is this all there is? Why is my life not better? Where did I go wrong? Because we're sold this idea that retirement's going to be a never-ending vacation and we can do whatever we want whenever we want. Okay, but that gets boring after a while. I mean, when I was a kid, I'm of an age that when I was a kid and it was summer, mom just said, go outside, don't come in until it gets dark. Great for the first couple of weeks. But by the end of the summer, I was bored out of my mind and ready to go back to school. Well, retirement doesn't come with an end date like that. It's just day after day after day. So that's one of the reasons that I'm really trying to get out there and help people understand you need to prepare for a lifetime of opportunity, but you need to start thinking about it now, not 6 months into retirement.
my kids have just been on winter vacation and they were
Okay.
so excited and they had the countdown. It's a month,
Yep.
it's 3 weeks, it's 1 week,
Yep.
it's 1 day, it's 1 hour, and we're going to party. And a week into holidays, they're saying, Dad, I'm bored. I want something to do.
Exactly.
I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well, we're going on holidays, but that's going to be a couple of weeks away. I've got to work and we'll go on holidays. So you go on holidays and you check into the hotel, you go to your favorite restaurant, and then you go
Mm-hmm.
shopping. And then you do that the second day, and you do it the third day, and you do it the fourth day. And by the end of the
Mm-hmm.
fifth day, the kids say, we want to go home. Why? We're bored.
We're
So you're
bored.
going to go
Yep.
home and you're going to be bored, and you're on holidays and you're going to be bored. And I could imagine for people who have occupied their time, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day with a task or a chore, all of a sudden have 24 hours a day. What a
Yeah.
shock.
It is. It is. And again, a lot of people have kind of a general idea. I want to travel more. I want to spend more time with the kids, that kind of thing. And that's fine. But that doesn't fill the day to day. A Monday morning and I get up, what am I going to do? And then what am I going to do? And then what am I going to do? And same thing on Tuesday and Wednesday. Your job provides more than just a paycheck. It provides routine. It provides intellectual stimulation, that emotional support, all those attaboys, thanks for helping me while I was on vacation, that kind of thing. And the social aspect. A lot of people don't realize that when you leave your job, all of those people probably not going to keep that friendship. If the only thing you have in common is that job, after you're done gossiping about whatever's going on at work, then what do you talk about, right? So those
Mm,
relationships naturally kind of fade away. And that's to be expected and that's fine. But if you don't have any other relationships, that's a problem, right? So yeah, the routine. And the other thing that people think retirement comes with is extra motivation. So someone who says, "Ooh, when I retire, I'm going to start working out every single day." If you didn't do it before you retired, you're probably not going to do it after you retired. So,
mm,
there are things like that to consider when you're thinking about what am I going to do with my time?
mm. You made something there that hit home for me. It was about being with these people during the day and then retiring and you're no longer with them. And I was reflecting on one of my previous careers. I was in the airline industry and
Okay.
I had a group of very close friends. We were all expatriates. We all lived in Dubai
Okay.
and I wanted to be a good friend and I wanted to stay in contact. And what I
Mhm.
found was I was doing a lot of reaching out at the start, and so were they. And then it
Mhm.
started to taper off. And I got to a
Mhm.
stage where I was doing the outreach, but I never heard anything back. There was no
Mhm.
boomerang coming back.
Mhm.
And it hurt because I thought, am I not a good friend? Didn't I do the things that a good friend would do? And wouldn't there be reciprocation? And then I had the realization that everybody moves on.
Mhm.
And maybe I
Yeah.
was just holding on a little
Mhm.
bit longer and the friendship was more important than the time we had at work. And it
Mhm.
took me a long time to adjust. And it wasn't weeks or days or months. It was probably years that it got me to the stage where I just said, I've got to stop messaging these people because they've moved on
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I have,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm not dealing with it. So I could imagine for people in retirement, what a shock
Yeah.
that must be.
It is. It is. And if you've never changed jobs, because I've changed jobs and run into exactly the same thing with people that I thought we were very good friends and I kept reaching out. But then I realized again, we didn't have anything in common except that company, that job.
Mm,
And so there wasn't the emotional connection there that I maybe thought there was. And that's okay, especially if you are aware of that this is going to happen. It's a little bit easier to deal with. It's that shock of, like you said, "What's wrong with me? Why does nobody wanna talk to me anymore?" You have to understand that they have lives, they have families, they have things going on, and if you're not interacting with them in the same way you were before so that you're aware of those things, that friendship's probably gonna fade. But that's why
mm,
it's so important to create new friendships and meet new people outside of whatever your career happens to be, because you can maintain those going forward. I tell people I'm an introvert. I have 4 friends. I have met all of them at some point where I worked, but we developed a friendship based on more than just work. And so I've been able to maintain those friendships. I have a friend, we've been friends for over 30 years. We don't even live in the same state. We're, hundreds of miles away from each other. And yet we have maintained that friendship through effort on both sides for 30 plus years. And that's what is important. Those social connections really,
Mm.
really are so important. I cannot emphasize that enough.
And those social connections are easier to make for some people. For the
Oh, sure.
extroverts in the world,
Yep.
they can make friends wherever they go. But for those
hmm
who choose to be more introverted, it
hmm
takes a lot of energy. And
It
I
does.
know, as being an expatriate, I have to put a lot of effort in to creating social connections.
hmm
And
hmm
I think the best way that I've ever heard it described was for an introvert, they start their day with 10 coins of social
hmm
energy in their pocket.
Okay.
And
Yep.
every time they have an interaction with somebody, they give one of their coins away. They give away a bit of their energy. And
Sure.
after they have 10 interactions, they put their hand in their pocket and there's no coins left and they're totally exhausted.
hmm
But
That's an
then you get
excellent
these
description. I love that.
people who are extroverts, they wake up in the morning, they've got nothing in their pocket. But for every person that they meet, they put their hand out and they take one of these coins. And
Yeah.
by the end of the day, they're full of energy. They got 10 coins in their pocket and they're ready to party.
hmm
And so for the people
Yes.
who are more extroverted, the thought of retirement and meeting new people must be so exciting. But the ones
Yeah.
who choose, myself and yourself, I've seen your LinkedIn profile, we're both introverts.
Yep.
It
It's
takes a
hard.
lot of energy.
It's hard. And that's why one of the things I recommend, particularly for introverted people, works for extroverts too, to make new friends is to expand on something you enjoy doing or find a group that does something you enjoy. So if you have a hobby, for example, I'm a runner, okay? I run marathons. So I have joined a group called Old Ladies Running because I am old. and it's a fun group. But that is something that we have in common. So when I want to interact with these people, I have topics that are already built in. I can talk about the equipment and what races are you running and how's your training going and da da da, right? So I don't have to work as hard at it. So when you can find some sort of activity or hobby or something that you have in common and then expand on that with other people, it's much easier to make friends because you may start as friends, just running. Maybe you join a running group and you train every week, whatever. But as you get to know people, you may discover, oh, hey, they like the same music I like. They like the same movies I like. Hey, let's go to this concert. And you start expanding on those relationships. And that's the easiest way to do it. But to your point, it can be exhausting because it's not a one and done. You have to put continuous effort. To your point, reach out over and over and over again. Hey, would you like to go to this concert? Would you like to go do this? Come on over for dinner, whatever it is. And over time, you will build that relationship or not, depending how things go, obviously. But yeah, as an introvert, that's what I found. It works really well for me is to find some way to expand on something I'm already doing and involves new people. And then there are new opportunities to make new friends.
Mm. I decided many years ago that I needed something to entertain my mind.
Okay.
And I picked up a set of tarot cards and I picked them up
Okay.
and I looked at them and I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And I started to study and research. And
hmm
I have one very good client and it's my wife. And every day she wants a tarot reading.
Oh,
So
wow.
for as many years we've been together, 16 years, she's been getting tarot readings. So I've been getting all this practice. And
Okay.
now my 13-year-old daughter wants to have a tarot reading. She wants to find out about the girls in her class. And
Okay.
then my son, he wants tarot readings. So I know that when I retire, I'm going to have this skill that I can use socially, just as a conversation starter, just as
Oh,
a little
yeah.
bit of fun. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
already working on it today because I know in 30 years from now or 40 years from now, sitting around the campfire, somebody's got to start a conversation.
Yep.
And
That's
so
a
I'm thinking
great
about
idea.
that as a skill.
Yeah.
but it's something that I've developed now. And I know that if I'm good at it today, I
Mm-hmm.
can bring joy to others later on. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of us wait. We say, well, one day when
Mm-hmm.
I, then
Mm-hmm.
I'll. And then you get
Yes.
to retirement, you realize, oh my gosh, I don't have a lot of time left to get good
Mm-hmm.
at something. And I don't necessarily want to go back to the start.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very
I think
true.
that creates a lot of stress for people.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. And the other thing I don't think people realize is a lot of the skills that they have now, executives in particular, or people that I work with, um, their soft skills carry over to other things. You don't have to just use that at work. So for example, my dad was a salesman for years. He was a really good salesman. So that brings with it a lot of skills. Now granted, he's an extrovert. But he's was able to then take those skills and use them to do other things after he retired. So he started teaching classes in Myers-Briggs personality type testing. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Mm.
for whatever
I was
reason,
doing one today.
he loved it. Absolutely loved it. So to your point, he studied it before he retired. He studied it. He learned all about it. He became someone that can give the test and teach about it, all of that. So when he did retire, he had this thing that he was already excited about and was able to take that into retirement and, to your point, help other people. And he loved it. It was fantastic.
Mm. Good on him. What a
Yeah.
great thing to have in retirement. As part of what I do, I've profiled 10,000 leaders over the years.
Okay.
And one of the things that my clients love, but also when I go out socially, is they want to know about people's profiles.
Oh,
And it's a
sure.
great
Okay. Yeah.
conversation starter.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
people are like,
yeah.
well, tell me about this person and how do they think? How do
Mhm.
they feel? How do they act? And for
Okay.
your father to have that, what a great conversation starter.
Oh, it was. It was. It drove his kids nuts because he was constantly, "Oh, this person's an ESTJ or this person's an INFP or this person's a whatever." And we're like, "We don't care. Can we please just eat now?" Or whatever it was at the time. But yeah, he thoroughly enjoyed that and did that for years. But again, to your point, he started something before he even retired that he was able to maintain after
Mm,
retirement. Now, unfortunately, not everybody's able to do that. Some people working 80, 100 hours a week, they just don't have any more capacity to do anything else. So when they do retire, then it's time to figure out, well, shoot, what do I want to do with all this extra time? And that's one of the things that I kind of help people work through and figure out and help build a retirement of passion and purpose so that they don't retire to the couch and
mm,
they can just, really enjoy those years.
mm. When I think about purpose, I also think about courage.
Mhm.
And I think everybody, depending on how they've finished their earning years, is
Mhm.
going to launch into retirement with a very different level of courage because some people finish on a high. I've just
Mhm.
exited my business. I've got tens of
Mhm.
millions of dollars in the bank account. I've bought the
Yep.
dream home. Financially, I don't have to worry about anything. And so
Mhm.
they might launch in with a lot of courage because they've just finished on a high. But
Mhm.
other people, they come to an early retirement. Sometimes they retire before they plan to. They might have got a redundancy,
Mhm.
but the situation where they were let go might not
Mm.
be that glamorous. So they finish on a low and now they're coming in with maybe a lower level of courage or less
Mhm.
confidence into retirement. And that impacts the start of the journey. How do you see that impacting people, like levels of courage or confidence?
And that's so true because people that, to your point, have maybe were retired a little early than they planned for whatever reason are frequently sad because they've lost their job. Just like, getting laid off or whatever for someone that's younger. It's an emotional impact that you need to deal with.
Mm,
But the other thing that I like to point out to them is, okay, but now you have more time to create a legacy. And when I talk about legacy, I'm not talking about money and what I'm going to leave for my kids or a name on a building or whatever.
Spend it. Make sure you
Yeah,
spend it all.
spend it. Make sure you spend it. But how do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to say about you? What is the impact that you're going to have on people's lives? How are you going to make the world better? And when people start thinking in that direction as opposed to, oh, I just have to fill my time, it really flips the script on what they end up doing in retirement because they start thinking about it's not just about me. What can I leave behind? What impact will I have on the world? And it's such a different thought process than where am I going to go on vacation next year? You
Mm,
know, and it's one of the things that I really try to help anyone and everyone that I meet understand. We are more than just our bank account. We are intelligent, articulate, helpful people. And the more that we can do in our own community, you don't have to think big picture. That's the other thing. Our culture tends to say, hey, if it's not big, it's not important, don't even bother trying. No, small things matter. Helping in your community matters. And if everybody's helping in their community, it makes the whole world better. So that's
mm,
one of the things I say when I'm out speaking is that I'm trying to save the world one retirement at a time. And eventually we'll get there. But yeah, just changing the way people think, and then it doesn't seem to matter as much why they retired or when they retired when they start thinking about their lives in the legacy framework as opposed to just the vacation framework that many people
mm,
start out with.
mm. I'm sitting here, I'm becoming like your father, and I'm profiling myself, and I'm thinking, what am I going to be like? For
Mhm.
some of my personality traits, for the people who understand the science of DISC, if you know MBTI, you probably know
Sure.
DISC. For
Mhm.
me, I'm a high D. I want to fight.
Okay.
I get
Okay.
angry. I get mad. I want to win. Everything's a competition. And I could imagine my first week into retirement. There's nobody to fight. There's nothing
Mhm.
to make me angry. Everybody's a collaborator and not a competitor anymore. Where do I fit in?
Right.
And I
Yeah.
think I would have to reinvent myself because with my personality style, business suits me because I'm discontented. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter if I win 100 times today, I should have won 101 times. Nothing's ever good
Okay.
enough because I'm a type A personality and I'm still trying to prove myself to my father at age 47. I'll probably be still trying to prove myself to him at 83 and he'd be dead for 50 years.
Yep.
I could imagine the first week in retirement. My gosh, what a nightmare.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Well, and it's
Thinking
funny you
through
say
that
that.
today would be wise. Knowing
Yeah.
myself, I could go, oh my gosh, I've got to change. I got to be
Mhm.
ready.
Mhm. Mhm. Because there's actually, so we're talking about phases of life earlier. There's actually, or what I tell people, there are 4 phases in retirement, right? There's that first honeymoon phase, those first 6 months where you don't have to go to work and you don't get stuck in traffic and you don't have to go to that meeting that should have been an email, and all those things that go along with work. And that's fantastic, and people should embrace it and enjoy it for all that it's worth. But the second phase, and I want to emphasize everyone goes through this, no matter how prepared you are, but there's a sense of loss. Even if you were excited to retire, there is a sense of loss. You've lost your routine, you've lost your social connections, you've lost the intellectual and the emotional, like I was saying before. But then most people move on to stage 3, which is the exploration phase. Hey, let's try and do this. I got to fill some time. Okay, I'll do this over here. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. You just keep trying things until something sticks, and that's okay. Um, Most people spend a couple of years trying to get to that point, to be honest. But then the fourth phase is the one that I try to help people get to, and that's reinvention. You have completely reinvented yourself outside of whatever your career was before, and you have found a new passion, a new reason to get out of bed. For most people in that stage of reinvention, you have 3 or 4 what are called core activities. Think hobby on steroids, something you're super passionate about that just really, really drives you. And for most people, at least one of those things they're giving back to their community. So the result is you are more resilient as life throws changes at you, because life keeps happening to all of us. You are better able to handle those changes as they come. And so that's what I try to push people toward, is not just filling your hours in the day or your calendar, but fill your soul. Find your passion, the thing that launches you out of bed and gets you excited to share with the world. That's what's going to keep you going and keep you, again, resilient in retirement as you get older.
Mm. Sounds a little bit like the grief curve.
Yes, very much
We
like that.
we go through that sadness, and then to get out of it, we've got to get back into that reinvention stage. And I think all of us secretly, we look in the mirror and we don't like what we see. And I think retirement gives us an opportunity to reinvent ourselves once again. And I see a lot of parents, when they retire, they're far better grandparents than they were parents. Like my
I've
grandfather,
heard that.
he was a shit of a father, but as a grandfather, he was pretty damn good. And he was good to me and my brother. But for the next generation of cousins who are younger than me, it was like, why didn't we get that version of him when we were that age? Even parents here in Taiwan who have been working, in one of our work cultures here, to our detriment, is what they call 996. So you work from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. and you do that 6 days a week for most of your life.
Wow.
That's a big commitment. It's
That
a big
is a big
commitment.
commitment. Yes.
And if you have a look at work from home here, the concept is not new here. The concept of work from home is ancient. So in a lot of the houses where I live, you will have 3 to 4 story building. But the ground floor is your office, and your other 3 and 4 floors above are for you and your entire family. So working from home, you might have an accountancy office on the ground floor. And the next door neighbour's got a mechanic. So you've been here, 996, most of your life. You haven't seen your kids, and now you get into retirement and you become the ultimate parent. The parents around here, the grandparents, from the moment that the babies are born, for the first year, the baby's feet don't touch the ground. And the grandparents become the full-time carers, and they love it. They walk
I bet.
grandkids to school, and they're with them all the time. And you think, my gosh, where were they when they had kids?
Yeah.
But they've reinvented themselves. They've become a different parent. And they're so relied upon in our culture, because here we have a very close proximity. Some of the properties here, like I mentioned, you'll have 3 and 4 levels, but you will have mum and dad on the first floor. The ground floor will be for the business, mum and dad on the first floor, oldest brother or oldest son on the second floor, next brother on the third floor. So multi-generational living.
Wow.
Which is fantastic.
Amazing.
But they become very different in retirement.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's amazing. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that.
Well, here with my children, it takes an entire community to raise my children. So my wife is Taiwanese. I'm Aussie. My kids are mixed blood. They're bigger than everybody else. They're louder than everybody else. And they seem to get all the attention from their grandparents, from their aunties, from their little cousins.
Nice.
And it takes a whole village to raise them. But I like it because although I'm from a very big family in Australia, and there's probably 160 living relatives, everybody is spread out geographically.
Sure.
But here we're localised. So my children, there's probably 20 family members within a kilometre radius here.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I always tease my mother-in-law being very lucky. She has 4 boys, and they all live in the same town, major metropolitan. We live in the Midwest, but they're all for their entire lives. No one has moved away, kind of thing. Whereas in my family, we're more spread out, and for most people here in the U.S., the children grow up and they buy mom and dad, and they may move to the other side of the country, which is thousands of miles away. So it's uncommon here in the States to have that where they're all together like that. That's fantastic. And it's so good for everybody.
My daughter, she said to me when she was really young, she said, Bubba, she said, my goal is to live at my grandparents' house for 1,000
Oh,
days. And it's a very
oh,
different concept because when children go and see their grandparents in the Western world, it's like we're going to see and stay at their
mm-hmm,
house. And it's
mm-hmm,
always temporary.
mm-hmm.
But the language that she was using here was, I'm going to live there. It's not just to visit. I'm going to
Right.
live there for 1,000 days. And she
Wow.
absolutely 100% achieved that goal.
Nice.
But it's
That's
living. They don't.
amazing.
If my boy goes and stays with his grandparents for a night, the language is not I'm going to stay there, I'm going to live, which for me is like,
Wow.
that's a full commitment. He's going to live there
Yeah,
for
yeah.
one night.
That's amazing. I love that.
And you know what you were saying here as well is the Taiwanese way is also a little bit different than the Western way. A lot of times parents look at their children in the Western world and the philosophy is we're responsible for you until you're 18. And at
Mm-hmm.
18, you're responsible for yourself, which sometimes includes being shown the door for some.
Yes.
Where here, it's very common for children to be living at home into their 30s,
Nice.
if not into their 40s. And the parents, they say, well, you stay here as long as you get rich. So don't go and rent, don't go and get your own mortgage, save your money, live
Mm-hmm.
here, and it's
Mm-hmm.
more communal living. So
Yeah.
for some of my cousins who still live at home with their parents, that's totally normal for them. And they've
Mm-hmm.
got the company. So as they go into retirement, they're not alone. When
Mm-hmm.
my grandmother and grandfather retired here, my wife and I were living at their property because it was 4 stories. It was built for an entire family.
Sure.
And they said, come and live with us. We want you to live here and we want the new soul in the house. So for the first
Wow.
few years of my daughter, we lived with her great-grandmother and we got the red carpet rolled out for us.
Sure.
There's
Sure.
a housemaid. She cleaned the property. She took care of all of our clothing. She cooked 3 meals a day.
Wow.
I had full-time carers for my daughter. I just kicked my feet up. I said, this is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, that's the thing about the Western culture. And part of the problem with the isolation is you retire, well, you're in your own house and it's usually just you and probably, maybe a spouse or not, depending, right? But then it's just you. And that is quite a shock to the system. Introvert or extrovert, it doesn't matter. That's a huge shock to suddenly be basically alone with yourself. And if you've not ever had to do that before, that can be a bit of a problem too. Just figuring out who am I, it's just wow. I love the idea of being able to retire and have your whole family around you. I will say my kids still live at home, and I'm trying to persuade them that they should just stay because I enjoy my children. But they're in their 20s, and to your point, they're working hard. They're like, why should we go rent when we can save money living at home, and we'll just go buy a house when we have the money, and blah, blah, blah. But it's definitely a different culture here because people look at them and think, well, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you out? To your point. And I look at them and say, please don't leave me, please. But
it's like the empty nesters, isn't it? It must
right,
be.
it is. I don't want an empty nest. I want to keep my children, but we'll see what happens when they get a little bit further down the road.
Yeah, I left home pretty much 26 years ago and I've been on the road since. And I know my mum secretly would love for me to come home. She'd love me to come home, bring my kids and stay there because my brother and his wife and their kids live at home and it's a big property. It's 6 acres. There's multiple houses on there. There's heaps of room. And I know secretly mum would love that because when you have that love in the home, when that joy, when those bodies, when those souls are there, it's so much more enjoyable. But the moment that they leave, the silence, it's like my kids, they can be screaming and shouting and fighting and I just want to say, shut up. But as soon as they're at school, it's like, I want to walk down and look through the window. Just want to see them for a minute.
Yep.
It's
Agreed.
this inner conflict. My grandmother, my mother-in-law, she's an accountant and she's been in retirement or going into retirement ever since I've met her. So that was
Okay.
probably 16 years ago.
Okay.
But she hasn't retired yet. And I think one of the things for her when it comes to retirement is there's always a crisis coming. And
Mm.
there's always a change in the political environment, in the
Mhm.
geographical climate.
Yes.
And just in the past 9 days, we've seen a new conflict start in the Middle East. And
Mhm.
I'm sure that this scares the pants off people who are
Oh,
just
yeah.
about to retire. And they probably
Sure.
even start to second guess themselves. Is it the
Mhm.
right time?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do
Well,
you
and that's
navigate that?
the thing is I hate that word retirement. I really hate that word because it means an ending. For a lot of people, culturally, it means I'm done. But the fact is, you don't have to retire. You don't have to completely stop working. You can make choices that allow you to dial it back a little bit. You don't need to work 60 hours a week or 80 hours a week. Maybe you only work 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week. Or maybe you do something I've been talking to my husband about recently, who's approaching retirement, leaving the job that he currently has that's full time, that he enjoys, but he's kind of done with it. And he's already identified a couple of other places that hire part time workers. He loves gardening. These are greenhouses. Hey, I could go work there part time, still have an income, but I'm doing something I've always wanted to do but couldn't before because I had to have benefits and I had to have, take care of the kids and pay the mortgage and da 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 da. Da. So you don't have to retire. Another thing that I've seen a lot of executives do is retire from the corporate world but create their own business as a consultant because they're an expert in whatever that industry is. They really enjoy it. They don't want to leave it behind, but they also don't want to work 80 hours a week or whatever it is. So what they do is they become a consultant, and frequently they will consult with their previous company. So the company keeps that expertise, and the individual gets more freedom in their life because then they decide, how much am I going to work? When am I going to work? Oh, you know what? I want to take a month off and travel a little bit. I have my own business. I can do that. So
Mm.
things like that. You don't have to just jump in and quit working and be done. There are options available to create an environment, create a revenue stream, whatever it is that you need to make yourself feel more comfortable. Because life changes, the world changes constantly. There is never going to be a moment without a crisis somewhere. That's just the way it works. Now, obviously, there are better times than others, but there's always going to be something. So you have to decide for yourself, what are you comfortable with? What do you need to have to feel okay with not working full time?
Mm. Well, I think a better word is retiring.
There you go.
Retirement, very, very complete. That's the nail in
Yeah.
the coffin. But
Mm-hmm.
retiring is the process is still ongoing. And I might just
Mm-hmm.
dial it back from 80 to 70 to 60 to 50 to 40 to
Right.
30.
Exactly.
There's
Exactly.
a there's an author by the name of Timothy Ferris, and he wrote a
Sure.
really good book many years ago called The 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah, oh,
And
yes. Very
you've read it?
familiar.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
He was talking about the process of retirement as well, and people will
Mhm.
wait their entire life and they
Mhm.
say, okay, now I'm retired and I'm going to go to Mexico. I'm going to go
Mhm.
to Asia now that I'm retired. But he basically says they're so old and they've ruined their whole body that by the time they get that, they can't enjoy it. And
Exactly.
what
Yep.
he was proposing in the book was mini retirements. So
Mhm.
now at 40, if you've got the house paid off and you're earning good money, you can possibly do some consulting, go and test it. Would
Mhm.
you actually like to live on the beach in Puerto Rico
Mhm.
for non-stop 24 hours a day? Go down and test it. And he would say, test it. And I think for a
Yeah.
lot of people who have tested something like that, some of the wives, they might absolutely fall in love with it. But some of the husbands are like, I'm bored out of my brain.
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
my parents are retired and they're traveling around Australia and they've been on the road for 6 weeks. And my dad loves being on the road because he
Mhm.
gets to drive the camper home. He gets to
Okay.
pop it up. He gets to
Sure.
prepare it all. He puts the jacks under
Okay.
there. And he feels good because he's an old farmer and his hands are
Okay.
busy.
Sure.
But
Sure.
when
Sure.
he comes over to Asia and somebody's got to fly the aircraft and he's got to sit
Oh.
there, he's bored. And when he
Yep.
gets here and he's in an apartment and he's not on the farm, he's bored. And he goes down to the coffee shop twice a day and he's bored. He hates it. So he knows that coming here to have a retirement doesn't suit his personality. And even for mum, she comes over, but she gets bored pretty quick because it's a very different environment. But they've only learned that from coming over and having a little staycation.
Oh, yes. It's been a while since I've read that book, but yes, I love the whole idea of before you jump full in, try it for a while. That's one of the things. So my husband and I enjoy traveling, and we're talking about, well, let's do some long travel. Let's go to Australia. It's one of our places, but we're not going to go for a week and try and cram everything in and still not get to see everything. Let's go for 3 months and stay and relax and see things at our own pace and just try it out. Yeah, that is 100% a great idea. That's one of the things I recommend to people who are talking about, well, my kids are in California and I'm in New York. Maybe I should move out there. How about you just go take a long 3 months, rent an Airbnb, whatever. Do it that way before you sell everything you own and make a big move. It's a really, really good idea because to your point, you might discover the culture's wrong, it's not going to work, and now I'm stuck, and what do I do? And yeah.
And each place is different in a different season.
Yeah.
And I think we have to experience the place where we want to end up in all of its 4 seasons. And one of the places that I like to visit is South Korea. And I went in November and I went again last month, and I love it in wintertime. But I don't think I'll like it in any other season. But I love it in winter because here in Taiwan, we get up to 38 to 40 degrees Celsius for about 6 months. So we're sweating, we're boiling, it's hot and humid. And then when we get to about November, December, you can zip across to South Korea. 2 hours flight there, 3 hours on the way back. But you can get out of the airport and it can be 0 degrees. So you get this crisp, cool, dry weather. And then you go back in February, as we did, get off the aircraft and it's minus 11. And I love it for a week.
Wow. For a week. Okay. All right.
But then I want to change. And even here in Taiwan, we live in a place that's got a really great temperature most of the year. But there's some other places that I like to visit, and it's on the seaside. And on the seaside in winter, it's cold, the winds whip the shore, the humidity's really high, everything's damp all the time. But then you go there in summer, and there's this stretch in summer where you go down to the beach, the sands are white, the shores are blue, and you got this gap of about 3 months where it's absolutely perfect. And then the typhoons come in. And so you don't want to be there in typhoon season. So if you know it, you're like, okay, well, I could live there for 90 days. But the other 265 days, I want to be somewhere else.
Not so much. Yeah. That's what I keep telling my husband. I can't wait until we both retire and we can be snowbirds, because we live in Minnesota in the United States, which is north, and it's very, very cold. And there's a lot of snow for 6 months out of the year. And I am tired and done with that. It was fun when the kids were little and you go sledding and you build the snowman or whatever, but no, not anymore. So yeah, I can hardly wait until we can go south for 3 months a year and just, or 4 months or whatever it is, and just skip the whole winter thing. But yeah, if you like cold and crisp, come visit me in January. That'll, that's.
I'd like to get your take on a couple of matters. I used to live in Dubai, which is in the United Arab Emirates. And when I lived there, there was always this whisper that the Iranians would send missiles towards the UAE one time, sometime in the future. And then there was these whispers that you'd hear that there was drone attacks. And this was going back in 2007 through to 2012. And that's now come true. And a lot of people in this part of the world particularly are going to be impacted by oil prices.
Mm-hmm.
So in Australia, which is about 10,000 kilometres from where I am and about 14,000 kilometres from the conflict zone, prices of fuel have already gone from $2 a litre to $3 a litre in a
Oh my
week.
gosh. Oh
And
my
people are
gosh.
taking their 44-gallon drums down two at a time to the petrol
Sure.
station and
Sure.
filling them up.
Yeah.
And I know that for people who are working, for me, okay, let's say I've got another 40 years of work. This is a minor obstacle for me.
Right.
It's a
Right.
minor
Right.
setback.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little rock in your shoe. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is a slight inconvenience. But for people who are on the verge of retiring, not retirement,
Mm-hmm.
but retiring, and now they've got to think about these prices,
Mm-hmm.
not so much about the financial impact, but how do they manage the anxieties and the worries around this?
Isn't that the question? Wow. Because that anxiety and I would love to figure out how to handle that because I tend to be one of those worriers myself. My husband's getting ready to retire in another year or so. So we're right there and we're looking at the world and thinking, well, maybe not. I think you have to think about what are your actual priorities because there's the fun, but if you can't afford to drive across the country vacationing, but your priority is leaving a legacy and not just going out and having fun, then I think that changes the dynamic a little bit. Okay, well, maybe we won't take that vacation, but while we're here at home, we can go work for that charitable organization that is going to help the homeless or whatever your passion may be, but you're focused on building a legacy, not on just having fun. And again, when you've identified those passions, you're going to be more resilient to those changes that are going to happen over time. So I think the important part is to rethink your retirement and figure out what are your priorities and stick to them. One of the things that I tell people, if you're having trouble with that kind of thing, write down 3 or 4 priorities that you can go back to and it's time to make a decision. Are we going to go do this or are we going to go do that? Well, how does that line up with my values and my priorities? And if it doesn't, then maybe rethink it a little bit. And I think that's probably the best way to handle those kind of situations is just change your perspective a little bit.
Interesting. My children and I, my wife, we went for a drive into Taipei last night. And I said to them, I said, look, I just want to give you a rundown of what's been happening in my life. I said, I'm 46 this year, and there's been an ongoing war for 46 years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I thought these wars were going to finish by now, but they haven't.
Mm-mm.
And I said, we went through the recession in the 80s. We survived.
Mm-hmm.
In my early career, we survived the global financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
We survived. We didn't get laid off by our company. We went through COVID. We survived.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, this one, I'm a little bit more worried about this one. And I said to the kids, what we've got to become very good at as leaders, we're going to become very good at functioning well in a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And we should have a crisis intervention right now as a family. So I said to them, as we drive into Taipei, I just want everybody to come up with 2 or 3 ideas of what we could do where we could cut our costs and start to rethink what we do. And I said, if we cut our costs now and we get rid of some of the things that aren't that important, then we can survive a little bit longer. And I said, in business, sometimes success is just outlasting your competitor by one day.
Yep.
And if you can do that, you can win. And I said, okay, what are you going to do? And my son Caesar said, well, you know what, Dad? Instead of driving to Pingdong, now this is an island that's about 400 kilometers away from us, he said, we could ride our bikes to Pingdong. And I said,
wow.
That's a long way, but that's a great idea. We could do that.
See, we could. You
And he's
could.
8 years old, and he's starting to think about how we can, navigate the crisis. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, what else could you do? And I said, because natural gas, a fifth of the world's gas comes out of the Middle East. And we use
Okay.
a lot of liquid gas here. And he
Mm-hmm.
thought about it for a little bit, and he came up with another whopper. And he said, Dad, you know what we can do? If there's no liquid gas, we can burn wood, and we can cook our dinner over wood.
Wow. Okay, but he's thinking. That's the important thing. He's thinking.
He's thinking. He's got options, and
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes when we get a little bit older, we lose that flexibility of mind.
Yes. Yes.
Because we're so logical.
Mm-hmm.
Where for him, this is just intuitive. Well, if the fuel's expensive, let's ride a bike. And you know what? That's probably a lot more fun for a lot of people. You know, if you're in retirement and you've got a little bit less money, but you've got a lot of time, seeing the country by bike, you've probably never done it in your entire life.
No. That's a great idea.
That child mind is fascinating. I think we've all got to think like kids sometimes. You know, what would my kids do in this situation? Like you were talking about when you were younger, your parents send you outside and they say, don't come home till it's dark.
Right?
And you find a way to
figure out
entertain
what
yourself.
to do.
You
What
got
am
no
I going
money.
to do?
You got heaps of time. It's like being retired, but in the other way around.
Exactly. Fall into the creek regularly, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, learn to swim. Now, in your book, Filling the Blank Page, what's your favourite part of your book? When you read your book, when you wrote your book,
when
what
I
did you
read
say,
my
this
book,
is a real whopper?
I think my favorite part of my book is the chapter that talks about making friends, just because that's something that I've kind of struggled with a little bit. And so it was nice because I actually walked through, I think it's a 3-step process for helping people make friends. And I'm like, wow, and it works. and I've used it myself. So I think that's my favorite because the one thing the pandemic taught me is that social connections are so important. My husband is an extrovert. And so when we were both home together and I was his only source of social interaction, by the end of the day, I had no more coins. Stop
I got
talking.
the coins.
I'm done. Right. So I think that's my favorite part because I can hand my book to my husband and go, look, this is what you need to do. You need to go make some more friends. And yeah, I think that's my favorite part.
Wonderful. I wrote some books, and when I read them after I wrote them, I secretly learned that I think I wrote the book for myself. And when I read the book, I go to myself, gee, this is great information. I'm going to apply it in my own life. So even if nobody buys my book, it's going to work for me.
Exactly. Oh, that's so true. I kind of had the same when I read it, or I'll read an excerpt and I'm like, wow, who wrote that? Oh, I wrote that. Oh,
Having a good
it's
day.
kind of fun that way. Kind of fun.
Now, for our audience who are going to retire one day, or they're going to take some mini retirements between now and that time, where can they get a copy of your book, and how can they get their hands on it?
So it's available on Amazon, as everything is, of course, but it's also available through, like Barnes and Noble and Apple, and all your major retailers should have it, at least as an electronic copy. I believe the only place to get the hard copy is Amazon currently, but that's the best way to do it.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to get a copy of the book, Filling the Blank Page. And what I know from reading books is that one new idea at the right time is enough to make you rich. And it's just not about being financially rich. It's all the other things, physically rich, emotionally rich, which you've got to be emotionally rich to come into retirement, mentally rich, but also spiritually rich. And I believe for people who want meaning and purpose in their life, it's not going to find you. You've got to find it. But you've got to activate what's called your reticular activation system. It's part of your mind that looks for a match to your most dominant thought. And if you can activate that many years before you decide to retire, you could be in for the best years of your life. So make sure you get a copy. Dawn, Thank you for your time today, and I appreciate your wisdom. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.